Hello and welcome to Demian's Astrology and Tarot channel. If you do like the channel, then please subscribe and please press the like button if you like this particular video. This is going to be looking at November 2021 from an astrological point of view. So I set up a chart that you can see in front of you for November the 1st, 2021, GMT UK time, midday. And we're going to be looking at some of the key dates over the month and how that's going to progress, and some of the planets that are really going to be making waves, causing us problems, or giving us a bit of a sense of luck just around the corner. We'll see. November is always a tricky time in the Northern Hemisphere. The symbology behind it is what they're all preparing for survival. The leaves are coming down into the earth to be reborn in spring. The nights are drawing in, it's getting colder, and it's a very otherworldly energy about it. And really it symbolizes, in a lot of ways, the aspect of death and what our relationship from a society point of view. And so, the dark night of the soul could be a good phrase to coin at this particular time of year. So let's just look at the planets where we set up from the 1st of November. Well, straight away, we've got the moon in Virgo, just separating from an opposition with Neptune. Again, that happens, once a month. And in fact, I think that the symbology at the start of the month, what I tend to do is that where the moon starts at the beginning of the month tells me what's going to be in the news, or what segment of society, what influence. And the moon starts off in Virgo, and of course Virgo is to do with health matters. So I'm afraid, yes, it's health matters that are going to populate the news for November. Now we've got the sun at 9 degrees in Scorpio on the 1st of November, and that's important. The sun, Scorpio is the 8th house in the natural zodiac, and the 8th house is a complicated house, and it rules, yes, maybe partners' money or other people's money, inheritance. I like to call it the skeletons in the closet house. It's it's the labyrinth of truth and trying to find out what the meaning of life is in the 8th house. It is about shared resources. It is about emotional truths. It's the opposite to the 2nd house, which is kind of what money you earn and what possessions you have. There's a kind of there's a two-way conversation in the 7th house, which is of course Libran house, and then you go into the 8th house, which is a bit more deeper into issues. So it has quite a psychological angle to it. Now, the good news is that Mars is now in Scorpio. Mars has not been functioning particularly well over the last 6 weeks. It's been in Libra, in its detriment, not being able to function. It's a bit passive aggressive, that combination. I always feel tries to be diplomatic, but actually wants to get things done, and therefore nothing gets done. So now Mars is in its traditional rulership of Scorpio, which I like that combination. I think it's a good combination to have. So it can begin to do things. It can be active. It can be decisive. It has an intuitive capability. But Mars needs to get past a certain planet to be able to really truly function. Because if you look here, what it's doing is it's forming a square aspect with Saturn, and if you're born in a day, if your sun is above the horizon in your chart, then your most malefic planet, difficult planet, is going to be Mars. And if you're a nocturnal person, you're born with the sun below the horizon, then your most difficult planet is Saturn. But with Mars squaring Saturn, both parties get a heavy dose of this particularly heavy and rather destructive energy. So this is a tough little period that we go into straight away, November the 1st, because we've got that square aspect forming. And when an aspect is forming, the tension is building up. It's building up. So that's going to be a very dominating aspect for November, the square between Mars and Saturn. Saturn is moving forward, and so in a lot of ways that's that's good. But having said that, there's still traditionally what we'd call as malefic planets. Difficulty. If we look at Mercury, Mercury is moving forward. It wasn't in October; it was going retrograde. It's at 23 degrees on the 1st in Libra, and it's forming a square aspect with Pluto, very tight on that day, which is going to be November 1st and 2nd. So again, look at communication. Look at things being unearthed in social media. How we deal with technology in the news, particularly on the 1st and 2nd November, revelations coming out at that time. That combination, to me, it's quite speedy because obviously Mercury is a fast-moving planet, but Pluto is really emerging. It was sort of retrograde last year, second half of last year, and then it's kind of now moving forward, and it's kind of becoming much more dominant and much more active. And Pluto always unearths things that need to be put out into the light, as so to speak. So Mercury does a bit of that on the 1st and 2nd November. So it should be quite interesting in the sort of news and the public space, particularly again with technology and younger people, particularly sort of 7 to 14 and the sort of mercurial years here. Also, just going back to the sun is also approaching an opposition with Uranus. So again, instability, unpredictability, financial issues, particularly investment, stuff like that, banking. This early part of November is a little bit crazy, bit of a crazy train, because the energy, there's a lot of squares and oppositions that coming in with major planets here. So we go into this month with not an easy aspect. Mercury square in Pluto, Mars square in Saturn, the Sun opposing Uranus, and of course, what Mars is going to do as we go into November is it's going to oppose Uranus as well. So a lot of tricky energy that's kind of going on here. Not an easy first couple of days. Right, okay, let's begin to just take this forward as I like to, because what we have here straight away is we want to look at that new moon energy here, which is on the 4th, and we can see here this is before the new moon because we got the moon at 6 degrees in Scorpio, and then the sun at 12 degrees, which is where the moon is going to form that energy of new moon. Yeah, kind of very, very challenging. Why is it challenging? Look here. The sun is directly opposing Uranus. Again, financial instability, banking problems, issues to do with that. These are all fixed signs as well. So when you get fixed sign, nothing actually changes. It has to be quite volcanic. It's like a build-up eruption and then... So don't expect the sort of revolutionary things to happen. This is not about that. It's a pressure cooker moment. Things that have been bubbling under for so long, suddenly, coming out of the woodwork. Now, I sort of I want to go back to the 1940s when Uranus was in Taurus the last time, and the Great Depression and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's really interesting to always look back in history. That's the great thing about astrology. We can do this because you look at that particular cycle, that 84-year cycle, and you kind of go, the repercussions of how as a collective we responded to that and how we tried to fix that, and now beginning to kind of be forced to look at that. And the way that society, since the 40s, is now has manifested, and so now we're seeing the cogs sort of fall off the machine a bit now, and the way that the economy and shared resources and equality has been done or not done. So this is what's really beginning to sort of become apparent during this time, and particularly I think November the 4th. We had not a great new moon, and last month it was pretty bad. This one's not fantastic as well, because Mars is at 3 degrees. It's only 3 degrees away from squaring Saturn. So again, that issue about restrictions and frustration coming out here. We've still got the square, although it's separated between Mercury and Pluto. This is not the best day. Venus, which has been in Sagittarius for other night, is about to go into Capricorn. Venus is stuff we're going to really be looking into, actually, as we go into the year, because we're building up to a Venus retrograde. So Venus is going to stay in the same sort of, zodiac sign for some time. So Venus is not moving particularly fast. So if you're in a Venus profected year, whoa, now we come in some interesting times. If you're in a Mars profected year, Mars is well with that square with Saturn and the opposition with Uranus coming up, you're in for a real challenging, but could be enlightening time with a positive spin on it. So this is a difficult, this new moon is very, very very challenging, which happens later in the day in the UK. Venus, yes, a critical degree at 29 degrees. Very, very challenging. I haven't mentioned Jupiter. Jupiter's moving forward in Aquarius. That's absolutely fine. So that's good. And it's been sort of trying with Mercury, but Mercury is now separating from that. Jupiter's not the big player it normally likes to be at this moment. There's the Saturns and the Mars. And Uranus, the players in this one. Okay, let's just move forward, shall we? So we're just going to move this forward. Okay, I'm gonna just go into the 10th. So that's the second decan of the the third decan of Scorpio, or about to come into the third decan. It's at 18 degrees. By the way, I should go back for. If we're looking at Samhain, actually, what I would celebrate the Samhain, when is it? Yeah, it's going to be November the 7th. You can see when the sun is at 15 degrees in Scorpio. That's Samhain for me anyway. So that's the 7th of November. So an interesting day there. And as you can see, the sun is separating from Uranus, but Mars is now 2 degrees away from Saturn. So this is, I'll go back to the 10th now. This is a very challenging time. This is a very, I don't want to be too dramatic, but the aspect of survival and the word, that word survival is very much in the consciousness and the collective at the moment. How do we survive this? How are we going to survive the next few months? That is going to be a big, big word. Like I said at the beginning, when we're in the sun in Scorpio, it does bring us into that kind of thing about the thin line between life and death, and we recognize it much more. And the aspects aren't helping this at all. If we look at the 10th here, immediately we've got the square between Mars and Saturn. Look, I think the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th are what we've got to look at. By the time we've got into midday on November the 10th, Mars is at 7 degrees 21 and Saturn is at 7 degrees 39. So the 7th for me is the date when I think a lot's going to kind of really begin to happen in terms of the people not being entirely happy with situations. And the reason why is the moon is in also on that day in Aquarius, making a conjunction to Saturn and squaring Mars. This is a slight rebellion. So, there might be marches or demonstrations or something that comes out that wants to go against the traditional. It's a very sort of challenging time here, and to add to it, on November the 10th, Mercury is also conjoining Mars and squaring Saturn. Big day, November the 10th, big day. In fact, I'm going to say the 9th of November, the 10th, and the 11th. Sort of give 2 days either side of it. Very, very challenging. Very, very difficult. And a lot to do with financial aspects here. Could be some kind of crisis within the financial sector comes about, or needs to be faced, or is unearthed here. But it is very, very difficult. A lot of tension that's coming into play here. And as we get, with Mars, with Mercury, they're also forming an opposition with Uranus, which Uranus is going retrograde as well. It's very challenging because as Uranus goes retrograde and Saturn is moving forward, that square aspect that's been causing problems for most of the year is going to get together again. But it's going to have the added bonus of Mars in there as well. So you can see the sort of dilemma that's sort of approaching, and maybe on an energetic level, you're all going to kind of begin to sort of feel this kind of energy sort of happening. We can see that Venus here has moved 4 degrees into Capricorn. Kind of nice. Obviously, it's going to trine Uranus. It's making sextiles to Mars and Mercury. That's quite nice. So yeah, but it's kind of out on its own. And as I said earlier, Venus is going to go through a retrograde and sort of become quite still. We're not going to get the best out of Venus for a few months. So while it's still functioning and still able to function, Venetian aspects need to be looked at. And certainly if you're doing any Venus work, certainly this is the time to start to do it. Even though I wouldn't say Venus was fantastic in Capricorn, just from a collective level, it's going to be there for some time. Okay, let's move this forward here. Just going, because we're going to go towards the full moon as well. So this is just the 15th. So this is, we're getting there to the full moon, which, is going to be at 27 degrees in Taurus. I'll come to that in a bit. But let's look at this. So what we have here is we have Mars at 10 degrees. So Mars is forming an opposition with Uranus. You see, Mars is great in Scorpio, but actually it's been influenced by other planets here. And it's really playing on the idea of the polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. So, the Taurians and the Scorpios of you who watch this, that you've got to be kind of a little bit careful of this energy, because you guys are going to really feel this. I want to bring in a bit of Leos and the Aquarians, the fixed signs. But yeah, the Scorpios, Taurians, you're going to really feel this. This is going to play out a lot in terms of how you respond to this energy that's going on. And as I said, it really is about the financial. So a financial awakening, financial values, other currencies, things being very much brought out into the open. And is this tangible? Can we work with this? Institutions may be starting to crash down around us in terms of the financial aspects. Property as well, having a bit of a crisis with a Taurian axis here. Food prices. November, food prices going to go up, So this is a big kind of a big issue. The things you can't ignore now. Oppositions are things you can't ignore. You just can't. You have to do something about it. Squares, tense, then something happens, you can maybe sidestep it. Trines, they're easy. Sextiles, easy. Oppositions, you have to do something about it. You can't ignore it. So governments are not going to be able to ignore it at all, you know? And it's interesting, in the UK chart, it's second, the 1801 chart, it's second and 8th houses. Scorpio being the second, and Taurus being the 8th in the UK chart. In the USA, it's the 12th and the 6th. So the thing is going to be about health aspects, mental health, physical health. Here with the UK, it's all about finances, property, finances, investment, stuff like that. It's going to come out from this particular aspect. Very, very challenging. I mean, the square is separating between Mars and Saturn, which is good. And now Mercury is at 15 degrees. That's separating, but that's opposite Uranus as well. Uranus is really striking up here a lot. Okay, let's go to the full moon. Do we dare? In a way, 19th. Yeah, it's about just before 9 o'clock a.m. UK time. It's at 27 degrees in Taurus, which is related to the round about the fixed star of Algol, losing one's head. So again, it's not an easy full moon, this one. And if you look, it's about 8:59 in the morning. It's challenging. Decisions not being made. I have to say this: you've got Mars 13 degrees in Scorpio, opposing the 12 degrees Uranus. So we're still got that Scorpio flavor of the Mars. The full moon, again, it's all happening in the polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. These two in the natural zodiac, it's the 2nd and 8th houses, all the financial aspects going on here. And I said at the beginning of the video, okay, health matters, but it might be about finances to do with the health that coming out here. If you've got like planets around about 26, 27, 28 degrees in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, and you're really going to feel this full moon energy a lot here, an awful lot, around. We've also got sort of Jupiter in the mix, sort of squaring the Sun, and there's a square aspect from Mercury as well to Jupiter, which that's okay. It gives us a little bit of leeway because Jupiter's okay in Aquarius. Can't do much, but it's okay. And you can see Saturn's at 8 degrees now. So again, it's getting closer to Uranus. So again, that sort of turbulence is really kind of significant. New moons this month is not fantastic. And full moon is also not fantastic. It's turbulent. It's unpredictable. I'd love to give good news, but these are very tricky times we live in at the moment. And we all know it. We all can feel it. I'm just moving this forward to November the 22nd around this. And already the Sun has gone into Sagittarius, so it's into the party season. A little bit lighter, a little bit the energy, but you can now see that Mars still opposing Uranus, and Uranus and Saturn are now doing a square dance with each other. But that's quite a major thing, that the Sun just moving into Sagittarius just moves into that energy that's a bit lighter, a bit more fiery, a bit active. Although it's a mutable sign, just takes a bit of the intensity out from the 22nd that we've been experiencing here. I say pressure cooker and survival are the two kind of, the words that really spring to mind for November, actually, 2021 for us. Very challenging on many kind of levels here. But as I say, particularly financial, people feeling that they cannot survive because of the financial aspect of this. Very strong at this time. Survival of jobs, stuff like that. Survival of how do we get through this? A lot of speculation about lockdowns as well. And that related to the aspect of death as well, and that being magnified. So a lot playing on that. I don't know if we'll get in the UK, certainly. I don't know if we'll get to lockdown in November, but certainly pushing towards that, or the fear agenda becoming very, very strong. But I think the financial crisis is going to sort of almost outweigh that in a way as well. I think there's going to be too many issues with finances and banks and investments, and that's going to sort of muscle that pandemic thing a little bit out of the way here. There's certainly a fear coming with that. This is the 26th, so we're coming to the end of the month. And now Mars is really come away from Saturn, and it's really coming away from Uranus, and therefore it can function. It is forming a square aspect with Jupiter, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. But it can suddenly function. Mars actually has time and space to make decisions. So I think this is when decisions will be made from a lot of the problems that we will see in the first 2.5 weeks of November, that the governments and will start to really make those decisions very clearly, or feel that they can at that time. And with a square with Jupiter, I think it will be quite optimistic. Try to be optimistic, but yeah, again, very, very, very challenging. I mean, Mars hasn't functioned well. It's in its sign that it likes, November, but it's been influenced by other planets here. And we look at Venus as forming a conjunction with Pluto as well. And as I said, Venus in December goes retrograde. So again, I said earlier on, the Venus stuff, that's the time to do it. When it comes near to Pluto, perhaps not the time to do it as it's forming. Just Uranus and the Saturn square, again, they're very close now, 3 degrees apart. It's all coming back up. But I also think there's good stuff that can come from that as well. I think that, the innovation and new ways of doing things, the outsider system, I certainly think will start to begin to show itself an awful lot. So let's just go right to the end of it. So I'm gonna go to the 30th, and we can see now Mars is at 21 degrees. Just had a trine with Neptune, still square in Jupiter, and we can see that Mercury is in Sagittarius, not so good. And we end really with the moon in Libra. So a better balance from the start to the end of the month, in terms of a bit more diplomacy and stuff like that, sort of coming into the mix. And Saturn is at 8 degrees. We end in Aquarius, 25 degrees, Jupiter's in Aquarius. And we can see the Venus is slowly picking up speed towards Pluto, making that conjunction. The nodes are at the last sort of stages of being in Sagittarius and Gemini. I've noticed that the sort of traveling aspect will be less restrictive, particularly when we go into the mid-January point, when the nodes go into the axis of, guess what, Taurus and Scorpio. Taurus and Scorpio, they're the big zodiac signs of 2021, and they're going to remain in 2022. So, and that's all financial, that's all survival aspects here. So what can I say about November? Hold on to your hats. Don't absorb the fear. Try and step back from it. Try and look after yourself, your family, your loved ones. Don't make any big major decisions. Keep yourself doing stuff that's enjoyable. As I say, I think the Scorpio Taurus axis can be very good for spirituality, for your meditation practice or spiritual practices, in deepening that. So to concentrate on that. Have an awareness that things always change. although it's not the Taurus way, it certainly could be the Scorpio emotionally. Things don't have to remain the same. This fear can be transformed into something positive. Remember that if you look after yourself and the people around you, it can be really, transformative and get us through that particular period. I'm really looking at the Ten of Swords in the tarot and the Rider-Waite deck, and you see a sort of sunrise in the background. It's a bit like that November. There is, the things are turning, but some for a positive. But sometimes we need to kind of face, the dark night of the soul. We need to face these fears, and that's what November is a lot about. So I hope you've enjoyed that. But please do subscribe to the channel. It does make a difference, and press the like button. I'm going to leave you and keep watching for more videos. And as I said, stay positive in November. Thank you.